I'd like to introduce Paul Marco, who is a property litigation partner and the managing partner for Trowers Hamlinswhere. Hi Paul, so you've been at Trowers for 15 years, over 15 years. What's kept you here?
It is over 15 years and it's a variety of things. It's the quality of the work and the high profile of the client base is very diverse and broad. So that's intellectually stimulating and encourages people to grow and to stay. And then beyond that, it's the people and it's the culture. And certainly, I think, having been here as long as I have now and had the opportunity to be part of the journey as the firm has grown, the practice has diversified, both in terms of new business lines and also new office openings, it's been incredibly motivating and enjoyable.
You've been described in chambers as knowing everything there is to know about property litigation. Some accolade. Did you always want to be a property litigator?
Yeah, that was the year we sneaked my mother in as a referee, by the way, so that explains that. But yeah, being a property litigator, it happily for me gave me the opportunity to pursue two areas that I've always been interested in, namely real estate and having an argument. So having originally trained and qualified into a West End law firm that was very real estate focused, I knew that I wanted to do contentious work. And if you wanted to do contentious work in that firm at that time, you were a real estate disputes guy. But certainly it's an area at a firm like Trowers, given the fact that real estate is kind of central to the business here. The breadth of the practice in terms of clients ranging from public sector, local authority, right through housing, right through overseas investors, institutions, gives a property litigator a huge amount to go at, which is intellectually stimulating and very enjoyable. You get a chance to really showcase yourself in lots of different environments, lots of different disputes.
Okay, so you've really enjoyed the work, the intellectual rigor, you say the client base. So why managing partner?
I've always been interested, I suppose, in the strategy and the operations of how to run a successful law firm. And the more senior one becomes and the more insight one gets into the dynamics of trying to grow a law firm business, just sort of piqued my interest further. And the management piece has been incremental really in my Trowers career. Initially, I suppose 7 or 8 years in, I had the opportunity to put my name forward for a place on our strategic board, put a little manifesto together.
Was your mum involved again on that?
She wasn't involved in that one, no. No. She was precluded. But I was lucky enough to get elected onto the strategy board. And again, that of course gives one an opportunity to look beyond property litigation, beyond litigation. And in a business as diverse as this, gave me my first insight really into the international piece, because my practice had always been domestic and lots of practice areas where I hadn't crossed into. I found that fascinating. I've never been one to sort of sit on the sidelines and whinge. I like to be involved and to contribute to the debate, and was sort of encouraged and empowered to do so before I was on the board as well as being on the board. So that was fun and motivating. And from there, I had an opportunity to take over as head of litigation, which was a role I was able to perform for 4 years, thoroughly enjoyed that. So the management piece was taking up more and more of my bandwidth, which I was enjoying. And then it was whilst I was head of litigation that some retirements in our senior leadership team created a vacancy at managing partner level. And so I put my hat in the ring and have never looked back from my perspective, thoroughly enjoying it.
And how would you describe your leadership style or your management style? Because I appreciate now we're looking at 5 generations in the workplace.
Yeah, we are.
All with different needs, demands, etc. How would you bring all that together?
I hope that my leadership style would be recognised as authentic, collaborative, and grounded in accountability. Look, one of our core values here is that we're not afraid to be human, and that's a value that came from the business, because we went out to the business, as we do every couple of years. We've just done it again, and asked them what they felt about the firm's culture and what they would like the culture to represent. And not afraid to be human was a great deal of alignment across the business about that. So what does that mean? I think as a leader, that means the importance of listening to views from across the business, right? From people fulfilling different roles across the business in different locations, and welcoming that diversity of thought. So that is part of the leadership style I try to bring. And approachability, again, is important. I want people to feel that the managing partner is accessible, is not some sort of remote individual that you rarely hear from except with some directive. It's an approachable person who people know, and that I think is part of trying to your point, to appeal to the widest constituency for as much time as possible.
To dig a bit more into your human side, and don't worry, it's not a therapy session or anything, but what keeps you awake at night? Or maybe nothing.
No, if only. The prosaic but realistic answer to that is my partner, who heads up our Malaysia office, is a morning guy who likes to email. So it's often my phone buzzing that keeps me up as he wakes up and starts firing off emails. But more broadly, it tends to be the larger scale issues which have the ability to impact across the business, by which I mean emerging risks, which may be macroeconomic conditions, geopolitical risk is never far away, how we continue to retain our talent and attract new talent. It's all the fun stuff.
Talking about geopolitics, you mentioned earlier the growth in terms of your Asia, Middle East offices, but at the same time you talked about collaboration and cohesion. How do you, in a world with lots of geopolitical issues, particularly at the moment, keep together all the different offices across the globe in a sense of community and collaboration when there's so much going on at the macro level?
It's look, it's a strategic priority for me, and I suppose it's a daily discipline, because you're right, we have 6 offices overseas, as well as 4 in the UK, and it's important to retain as much connectivity as possible. So look, we've invested a lot in our tech, of course we have, like everyone else. So where one needs to hold team meetings on a cross-border matter, or town hall type meetings, partner meetings, of course that will be leaning into the tech investment that we've made to make those meetings as interactive and seamless as possible. But beyond that, there's a number of different things that we do. For our trainees, there's always an opportunity for our UK trainees to spend one of their seats in one of our overseas offices, and vice versa. The international trainees get the chance to come to the UK. That's always very popular. Associates increasingly are spending some time in one of our overseas offices on a specific project or for a specific period. At the moment, for example, we've got one of our associates, she's gone to one of our overseas offices for a few months to savour that experience. And when these trainees and associates come back, they bring those additional touch points across the business with them, and are good advocates for the benefits of working perhaps for a period overseas. Partners as well. A lot of our partners have an inward investment element to their practice, and they will be encouraged, nudged by me, to get out there, go and see the clients with the local partners, go and do business development and marketing. That's very important. Our strategic board is designed to include partners from overseas and from UK offices outside of London, again, to ensure that diversity of thought and different considerations is captured. And then I do a bit of travelling. Me personally, I will travel to our international offices 2 or 3 times a year, see clients, see colleagues, and then do the same exercise in the UK with our out of London offices 3 or 4 times a year. So there's a lot that we do, more that we can do, but the connectivity, you're right, is key.
And you mentioned a lot of investment in technology. Will AI replace lawyers?
You'll have to ask the managing partner bot that question, perhaps. But I think, like everyone else,
that's our next interview.
That's excellent. Inevitably, like the rest of the market, we are exploring more ways to deploy generative AI to enhance client service. I think you will, for now, always need a level of lawyer human involvement to deploy the AI in as most effective a way as possible. But there's no escaping the fact that a large due diligence exercise on a corporate transaction, a large real estate acquisition where you've got to look at 500 titles, can now be done, certainly a first pass can now be done, by generative AI. And we have tooled up our lawyers with the wherewithal to deploy the AI to enhance the client service.
I was looking at when you are surprised how long-standing you are. You founded in 1777, I think, which was still in the throes of the American Revolution.
Yeah, quite right.
And if you look how America's evolved and where we are today, how would you say Trowers has evolved to where it is today in terms of, is there any? I'm not saying you remember back then, or you obviously weren't here then. How would you describe the culture of Trowers today, given its starting point?
I think certainly that long, deep-seated history in London is something we're incredibly proud of, and our 250-year anniversary, as you've rightly spotted, is not far off. But I think it's a case of melding that longevity and integrity that we have in this and our other marketplaces in which we operate, with an ability to innovate, bring in laterals, emphasize the importance of team rather than individuals. This is a place where we very much pursue excellence in our teams rather than certainly tolerating or allowing people to operate in silos. So integration is important. And I think the firm has continued to demonstrate, in terms of opening in new jurisdictions and expanding into new practice lines, an ability to evolve with the times whilst preserving something about the fact that we are very established without necessarily being establishment in the legal services market. And that should be a kite mark of quality and reassurance for clients, as it is, I should add, not to the same extent in terms of the longevity. In a lot of our Middle Eastern offices, we've been in the Gulf for 40 years, 50 years in some cases, and that builds trust and continuity with key client relationships that is very important to us.
We've spent quite a lot of time looking backwards. What about looking forward? What's the key focus? What do the next 3 to 5 years look like for Trowers?
We've got our growth strategy that we've been running with for a couple of years now, and have worked hard at articulating, which is to grow our revenue to 230 million by 2030, continue to grow our profitability. In terms of practice areas, real estate pervades the firm and runs through the DNA of the firm. The real estate sector, whether that's the real estate team or construction, property litigation, planning and environment, we do a lot of work facing into that sector, and we will continue to invest in opportunities facing into that sector in the broadest sense. In addition, international disputes, cross-border litigation and international arbitration is an area where we've enjoyed exponential growth in the last few years, have made some exciting lateral hires, done some really good work, and will continue to look to do that. It's really playing into the sweet spot, if you like, between the guys that operate in our international offices and those that operate in our UK offices, and in a litigation context, driving the synergies so that we're adding up to more than the sum of our parts. And as the litigation market has evolved, and there's more and more cross-border disputes, there's more of an opportunity for us with our footprint to do that. And we've seen that with our ASEAN strategy as well, which you mentioned a moment ago. We opened in Singapore last year, which is a very exciting development for us. We've been in Malaysia for 12, 13 years, been very successful. And the question for us was, how do we continue that trajectory and continue to enjoy growth? We need a second office. And once you think about that, the second office, the obvious place is Singapore. So that's exciting. We've got corporate expertise, projects and finance at the moment. Litigation will follow shortly. And we see that as a real opportunity, both in the local market and as a jumping off point for other jurisdictions in Southeast Asia from Singapore. I would hope to see growth in ASEAN and beyond in terms of the international piece. There's certainly more we can do with our international practice.
And looking a bit more at yourself, again, the human side, what would you say to a younger Paul walking in the door now? What advice would you give to him?
I think I would probably say, and I find myself saying this now to newly qualifieds and trainees and VAC schemers, that legal excellence is important, of course, technical proficiency, but it's a given. If you want a successful career in the law, you need to look beyond that. You need to start early in trying to build your network, build relationships with your colleagues, with intermediaries, with clients, of course, and show intellectual curiosity in your client's business. Of course, the client will give you an issue to solve or something to buy or sell. That's fine, deal with that, but look beyond that. Show interest in what the client's business objectives are. Try and develop into a trusted business advisor of your client as well as their go-to lawyer. And that, I think, is something that that young lawyers, all lawyers, would benefit from.
You clearly, what's come through is you're clearly a mentor, and you, for that more collaborative, supportive role. Have you had a mentor in your life?
I've had listen, I've been lucky, and there's no one mentor that I would elevate above others, but I think because, look, I worked in 4 firms before I came to Trowers, and have been lucky enough to work with an eclectic band of partners, many of whom I'm in touch with. I was having lunch with a guy the other week, and we realized halfway through, to my horror, that it's 30 years since he hired me, but that's my network, if you like. And I think leaning into partners with whom one has worked over the years for advice and guidance is really important. And the same goes for clients. I've been lucky enough to act for and work with a really wide range of quite interesting clients and eclectic characters over the years. And some of them I've acted for 20 years plus. And so in the course of that relationship, I think I would characterize myself as always being open to learning and chatting through issues, and valuing input from others. So it's that composite mentor that I've had the benefit of, I think, rather than one individual in particular.
Well, thank you for your time, Paul. And it's really interesting learning more about yourself and Trowers.
Thank you.
Thank you.